When you ask about the steps to being a brother, in the past it was very clear. You became an aspirant, then a postulant, then a novice, then you were a junior professed, and then you were finally professed. All that's a bit gobbledygook for ordinary people to understand. And I'm inclined to think that we do need a new language, because the language we use determines how we think about what brotherhood is. Nonetheless, there are still some initial steps. The first is to have a relationship with a community, to explore. And in fact, some people have joined religious life through the internet. So the first thing to do is to explore. If you feel this, sometimes it's just an urge, sometimes it's a still small voice, and it could even be something that emerges out of a dream and out of a faith commitment. It really does require a faith commitment. It's not something that you take on, and without some sense, it's not a career. What we do is a career, but who we are is really a vocation, and a call, an inner call of how we are in relation to the world. So the first step would be to have a relationship with a community, and usually if that community can sense you're interested in joining that community, there's a time of exploration. Traditionally that might have been called a candidate, and that's a word we could still use today. Then you take a step further and say, well, I think I'd like to explore this more definitely. And so that's when you aspire to become. I notice that those who study for the teaching profession or for medicine, they have, and for law, they also have their language. So in the past we've used the language of aspirant, one who aspires to join. And then we begin the next step, when the person is ready and when the community, usually through the designated brother who's walking with that person, the community begins to take some share in the responsibility of that discernment. And it is a discernment. It's not a decision made once and for all. It's a discernment of where is God's dream leading me. And so you make the initial step, used to be called postulant when you, I used to express it when I was living in Kiribati. The language expressed it a little more understandably than the language of English. It was te sakata tanakoa, the one who is trying out. And really it marks a stage where you become an inquirer. You are making a definite inquiry into this vocation of brother. And then together through time, and that time could be something as brief as 6 months or as long as 2 years. Usually it's within that time. Then it seems that if this is where you're going, the community and you will decide, yes, this is where I think God's dream is. And at that stage, you become a novice. The stage before that, if we were going to use a language that was 21st century, I'd be inclined to use the language of other groups and talk about being an applicant brother, one who's applying to be a brother. When you're a novice, as the word suggests, in many fields, in many occupational fields, a novice is one who's new to something. And the novitiate is a very particular time because it demands of the person that he enters into his soul and gets to know himself very well. Teresa of Avila says it very well, and she echoes somebody as ancient as Socrates. The way to know God, I'm not sure Socrates used this, but certainly Teresa did. The way to know God is to know yourself, so that it's a gaining in self-awareness, and that means facing the mucky bits in our lives, our past mistakes, our past hurts, our growing up, our coming to realize who we are. And that's a challenging time, that's a test. So for example, somebody who prefers to be you might label a person introverted, perhaps they need to be challenged to be a little bit more extroverted. And the extrovert, perhaps, where they get their energy from engagement with others, may need some challenge to be far more self-reflective. So that's the time of the novitiate, when a person learns to become free within himself to make a decision, so that it's not a decision he's got no other options, so he'll be a brother, or he hasn't found a girlfriend yet who he could settle with as a husband and wife. No, that's not really. It's really got to be, yep, I have other options. I could do this and I could be this way, but really I think God is calling me this way. And that's when a person makes those first vows as a brother. And we have a period of time where we sometimes call this an apprenticeship stage, where the young man kind of somewhat like a first year teacher, somewhat like the term used to be a journeyman for carpenters, where they kind of practice at being in reality, because they have committed themselves through the vows. And that goes through a period of time, a trial of 3 to 6 years, and then the person discerns that, yes, in accompaniment with other brothers, of course. It's always good to have this, where we walk alongside or are accompanied by, somebody who's gone a few steps before us. Then the person comes to the realization that, yes, this is how his life is to be, this is the best way he can be human, and more importantly, this is the way that God calls him. And then is it all finished? Ha-ha! It's finished when he's in the grave. Because formation as a human person, and more particularly formation as a disciple of Jesus, because it really involves becoming a disciple of Jesus truly as a brother, means our gradual Christification, our gradual deification, if you like, divinizing of the human soul, as the Eastern Church speaks of it. And that doesn't really finish until we're ready to meet our Maker. And even then, who knows? But formation is an ongoing life experience.